Well, CGTN's Ramah Nyang spoke to the board chair at the airline, Michael Joseph, and he started by focusing on the airline's plans to break even by 2024.
Okay, so I know your target as an airline is essentially at least break even by 2024 and get back into profitability thereafter. But working with the assumption that, for argument's sake, fuel prices remain exactly where they are at the moment, or at least around that $100 a barrel level, for lack of a better word, would that target still be feasible? Will you be able to break even by 2024?
The biggest issue on the performance of Kenya Airways, even at an operating level, we are profitable. The biggest challenge that we have is not operating costs. I mean, we can manage that. We can do many things we can do. The biggest challenge from going back to profitability is our debt. Is if we can restructure our debt, in particularly our lease costs. That's the biggest challenge that we have, because if you look at our lease costs of our fleet, and you benchmark them against fleet of similar ages, we're paying too much for our leases, and that's what we've been doing for the last 6 months, is renegotiating these lease costs with our lessors. So we've said now, and we've managed to, after a long and torturous process, we've reduced our lease cost by about between 18 and 19% on an ongoing basis, and we believe that is the key to restoring us to profitability by 2024. Plus, some of our debt restructuring, moving some of our debt to the Kenyan government where it should be, because they guarantee it in the first place, to their balance sheet rather than our balance sheet, which means we still pay for the debt, but they get a lower interest rate and also can have a longer term.
The leasing costs, I believe the CFO spoke about it a little earlier in the briefing today. I believe that was all 5 billion shillings, 5.8 almost billion shillings. That's roughly what, $50 million or so. Is that number more or less finalized now, or is there more room for costs to be cut?
No, there's more cost to be cut. No, we can't talk about it publicly because obviously these are very sensitive negotiations, because leasing companies deal with airlines all over the world, and they need to treat all the airlines more or less the same way. So on our ongoing fleet, yes, we believe we are where we've got to is that will happen in the future. But there's more to come. We have some expensive aircraft that we'd like to return, but return costs are very high. We're negotiating those as well. So there's more cost savings to come. We have pledged to the IMF through the National Treasury that we will reduce our operating costs further and our overhead costs even further. And that's in order for us to receive this funding from government. So there's more cost savings still to come.
When Kenya Airways was last in a comparable situation, early 90s, I believe, what happened back then was that a lot of the debts that the company had at the time were transferred on to the public balance sheet rather than remaining on the airline's books, as it were. In your talks at the moment between Treasury and the IMF, is there any inclination by Treasury to essentially do something similar, to do another debt-to-equity conversion?
Let me say, I can't speak for the National Treasury, because now I'm on TV, so I have to be careful what I say. But I really don't. I would not like that to happen. The government is a 49.5% shareholder in Kenya Airways at the moment. If we had to increase their equity by a debt-to-equity swap, it would mean we become a state-owned corporate enterprise, which comes with lots and lots of limitations, and which would not allow us to compete effectively against our biggest competitors. And so, therefore, I would rather keep the government just below the 51% mark as much as we possibly can. Of course, we can't speak for the future. We may be forced to, but I don't think we're looking at a debt-to-equity swap with the Kenyan government, at least.
Okay, then. What then does KQ look like at the end of this restructuring process in terms of fleet size, in terms of staff counts, in terms of the routes that the airline covers? What does that downsized, slimmer, fitter, leaner KQ look like by the time that 2-year window is over?
I think from a network point of view of where we fly is more or less where we are now. I don't believe there'll be any major changes. Maybe, sometimes you stop flying, you suspend flying to certain destinations because of passenger loads or profitability. We might add a few more routes, but I don't think any major changes over the next 2 years. Maybe we'll add 1 or 2 European flights over the next 2 years. So I don't think from a fleet point of view, a passenger fleet point of view, I don't believe we'll make any changes, except for maybe some reduction where leases are coming to an end, and we send some aircraft back. Freighter-wise, we would like to increase our freighter fleet. Freight is a very good business for us. There's a huge demand for freight, We have Nairobi is a very big freight destination or a freight hub, and we'd like to participate in that, but we don't have the right aircraft for that. We only have 2 small 737s, and we're looking to maybe increase that over the next 2 years by another 2 freighters, perhaps. From a staff size, I do not believe that we're envisaging any major changes from a staffing point of view. I think what we're looking for is not so much staff changes, but productivity gains. That's where we're looking from a cost efficiency point of view, from a cost reduction, is productivity more than numbers.